Welcome to the HP Industry Standard Server Support class. This is lab number 1, where we will be exploring ROM-based setup utility, RBSU, and the option ROM configuration for arrays, Orca. After completing this lab, you should be able to configure the RBSU on a G7 or Gen 8 server and configure RAID level using Orca. To complete this lab, we will need a ProLiant Gen 8 server or ProLiant G7 server, and the latest system ROM applied to that server. For us today, we will use a ProLiant Gen 8 server. We have been provided the onboard administrator IP address, the login name for the OA and ILO, the password for the OA, which blade server we're going to be using. So let's get started. The first step is to restart the server. And observe the booting process of the server and wait for the option to hit the F9 key to get into RBSU. You now see we were given the prompts at the bottom of the screen to press the function keys. Pressing F9 highlights the F9 function key option and lets you know the F9 function key press has been detected. Okay, now we've entered the ROM-based setup utility, or RBSU. As you can see, we have many options from the main menu, and you use your up and down arrow keys to select them. It starts out at system options. You can toggle down to power management options, PCI IRQ settings, PCI device enable disable, standard boot order, boot controller order, date time, server availability, server security, BIOS serial console and EMS, server asset tag, advanced options, system default option, and utility language. Right now we're being asked to go into system default options to restore system, erase boot disk. Go and select that. Press enter to select. It's saying warning, restoring default settings and erasing boot disk will reset all configuration settings to their default values and will delete all fixed disk partitions. Hit enter again, and then it gives you another option. We want to select yes to restore erase. And now it's going to go through a process of restoring and erasing, and we'll reboot the system. At that point, we'll go back into F9 again, make sure everything's reset, and go through resetting RBSU. Okay, we're given the option to press the function keys again, so I'll press F9, and you see it's been selected. All right, now that we're back at the ROM-based setup utility main menu, let's first go and set the date and time. Go down to that menu option, press enter. Now we have the date. We're going to do 12/11/013, and we're going to select the time. 14:30. Press enter. Now the time is set. If you want, you can press escape to exit out of the RBSU and then press F10 to confirm the exit. Or you can, and then restart the server and come back into F9 again. But we're actually going to go through and continue working within RBSU. The next step is to come in and set the standard boot order. So let's arrow on up to standard boot order IPL and make that selection. And we want to verify the boot order is appropriate. So we have CD-ROM, floppy, USB drive key, hard drive, and then the embedded Flex Fabric. So that's fine. We can exit out, hit the escape key, and now let's go change and check the boot order. So boot controller order, select that menu, hit return, make sure we got the right boot order. Here we have the embedded smart array controller first, and then if we have any mapped SAN, boot from SAN, we have controller 2 and 3 available if needed. So we're going to leave this set to smart array controller. So it's set correct, so I'm going to escape out. The next setting, next exercise, we're going to go in and look at hardware profile. So I'm going to go up to power management options and then select HP power profile and look to see what settings we have available. As we talked about in lab, we have balanced power and performance, minimum power usage, maximum performance usage, and custom. For this lab environment, we're just going to keep it at balanced power and performance. So select enter, and you see it put up there on the screen. Balanced power and performance is what's been selected. And then we can escape on out of this. We're going to go back into it, though, and we're going to look at HP power regulator. So come in and select that, hit enter. And it basically gives us a pop-up warning saying certain processors support only one power state and will always operate at their initialized frequency, no matter what power regulator mode is selected. So you can hit enter to get past that. Here's where we have a selection. So we have HP dynamic power saving mode, HP static low power mode, HP static high performance mode, and OS control mode. And for this lab, we're going to leave it at HP dynamic power saving mode. So we can hit escape. If not, we would just scroll on down and select the one that we want to change it to. So hit escape and escape again. And the next lab asks us to go back into power management options. And if we had that option for the correct server, we could have redundant power supply mode. That's one of the options in here. And then under that, we would have the option to select balance mode, high efficiency mode odd supply standby, and high efficiency mode even supply standby. Since we don't have this option for this server, escape back to get to the main menu. The next exercise, 1C, asks us to go in and configure server availability. So let's go on down to the server availability menu and hit enter. And we're going to look at the ARS status, and it shows it's enabled. And that's the setting we wanted to have it set to. If we wanted to disable it, just arrow down and hit enter. But we just wanted to make sure it's set to enable. That's the correct setting for us in this lab. So at this point, you can hit escape to go back one. And we'll go look at the ASR timeout with the next step. And you see it's set for 10 minutes. If we hit return, it gives us an option to select other times. We got the 10-minute one we're set to. We got 15, 20, 30, and 5 minutes. We're going to leave it set at 10 minutes. That's appropriate. So we can go ahead and escape out. And then escape out one more time. The next step of the lab asks us to go back into server availability to set the post F1 prompts. So let's go ahead and select server availability. Scroll down to post F1 prompt. It shows delayed. Let's go ahead and hit return and see what our options are. Our options are enabled, disabled, delayed. And delayed is what we need, so we're just going to leave it at that. And hit escape. Escape again, and we're back to the screen. If you're following in the lab guide, we now get to a point to exit out of the ROM-based utility. So you'd hit escape, and we have F10 to confirm. So you press the F10 key, and it actually shows you at this screen what your boot controller is. So it shows your current boot controller is the embedded smart array controller. But I'm going to hit F10 to exit, and it will restart the server. If we had a G7 server, we would continue on with the next step in the lab, exercise 2. But since we have a Gen 8 server, we're going to skip exercise 2 as instructed in the first part of this lab exercise and go on to exercise 3. In this exercise, we'll look at using option ROM configuration for array. We'll need to watch for the F8 key prompt to enter the Orca utility. When prompted, we'll just press the F8 key, and it should launch us into that utility. You've got to be careful and quick to watch what prompts on the screen, because some of these prompts go by really quick. So it should come up here in a little bit as it starts scrolling through the screen. Just wait for the smart array controller to come up, and we'll hit the F8. Okay, there's talking about the smart array controller, and there's where we need to press the F8 key. And there we go. We're now in the option ROM configuration for arrays. Let's go on to the next step. It says we're going to go in and actually look at the array and see if we already have a logical drive already created. And so we're going to go, let's go view logical drives first. See what we're there. So, but there's no logical drives already created, so you don't have to go and delete the logical drive. So I'm going to hit the escape key. So I will press the escape key to return to the main menu. And now we'll go on to the next pass, step 3, step 4, and step 5. And go to step 6. We're going to create a logical drive. So select this one. Back this up a minute. So now we would go select create logical drive to create the logical drive. I press return. Because of this environment we're using boot to SAN, there are no physical drives assigned to this server, so we don't have any physical drives to assign. If we did, it would show those ports and the amount of space that we had available for each one of those drives, and we could select those drives and press F8 to confirm the drive creation. And then when the configuration has been saved, we can press Enter to complete the configuration, and then we'd be done setting up the configuration. So that's the end of this lab. So that was Orca. Now we're going to look at the exercise 4, exploring other options in the RBSU, and we have a few questions that we need to answer. The first question says, can you discard all the changes made in RBSU when leaving the utility? Well, if we hit Escape, you see there is no option here to discard the changes. All we have the option to do is F10 to confirm the exit of the utility. The next question says, which RBSU menu will you use to verify if Intel-VT or AMD-V technology is enabled? So that would be in System Options. And if we go to Processor Options, you have the option to make changes to those settings. There's Intel VT, and if we had an AMD, we would see the AMD-V technology. Okay, take that here. The next question, number 3, says, which RBSU menu will you use to enable advanced memory protection? So again, you would go through System Options, and you'd go to Advanced Memory Protection, and we have the option to set Advanced Memory Protection here. Okay. So the next question asks, which RBSU menu will you use to disable the local smart array controller. Well, to do that, we need to go to PCI device. Since it is a PCI device, PCI device enable disable. Select that, and here we have an option for the two PCI devices in the system. One's the smart array controller, one's the HP Flex fabric adapter, and we can select it and disable it. The next question says, which RBSU menu will you use to configure HPA as a bootable controller? Well, we saw that before. We go into boot controller order, and then we select which controller we want to boot from. And we can change the order here also. Just press enter to select the controller and move it up and down. And the next question will ask, which RBSU menu will you use to change serial number on your server after motherboard replacement? So for that, we need to come down to Advanced Options, select it, and then we'll go to Service Options, and we can select serial number, and here's where we can select it. It does give you a pop-up. It shows you what the existing serial number is, and if we hit enter again, we have the option here to change the serial number. I'm going to escape out of here and save that. I don't want to change that. And the last question says, which RBSU menu will you use to change the RBSU language? Well, that is done here in utility language selection. And you notice we have two choices, English and Japanese. All right. Well, that concludes this lab, Lab 1.